Hello and welcome to episode 1 of We Lead, the female archetypes of leadership. One by one across this 6-part series, we will be talking about the different archetypes and hearing from female entrepreneurs about how those archetypes have shown up for them across their career path so far. As a reminder from our introduction, all of us have access to all 6 archetypes. Each one of them uniquely contributes to leadership behavior, and in a dynamic interplay, they combine to create a powerful palette of approaches from which a leader can draw on in her times of need. Today, we're talking about the archetype of the Queen. And joining me is Fernanda Carapinha, the founder of We Global. Welcome, Fernanda. It's, as ever, wonderful to spend time with you. Would you please introduce yourself to the folks that are tuning in today?
Sure, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me, Daniel. So my name is Fernanda Carapinha. I'm the founder of Women Entrepreneurs Global, better known as We Global, or We for short. And we are the first startup studio for women entrepreneurs and digital do-it-yourself startup platform. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I also started 2 other companies for digital entertainment. One is a data analytics company, and the other is a multi-platform digital content company. Prior to that, I've been a writer and producer and a senior development executive, developing content for many years, and also science fiction author.
Wow. Many strings to your bow. Always so impressive to talk to you. Before we get stuck into talking about your own experiences with the Queen archetype, Fernanda, I wonder if we could help everyone to get to know you just a little bit more first. As mentioned, you founded We Global. Why?
Well, I thought that the startup ecosystem for women was severely broken, and not just because women don't receive the funding that they need. As I think most women who are probably listening know, that 40% of all entrepreneurs are women, but only 3% of VC funding goes to women. And there's many other statistics behind that. But essentially, women just aren't getting the funding that they need to really seriously scale their businesses. And what I thought was even worse than that is that in order to really get in the door at that level, you need to have achieved certain metrics. You need to be a serial entrepreneur, ideally. You need to have had a track record. You need to have what they consider founder DNA. You need to have a serious track record in revenue or traction that you've established. You clearly need to have a network in order to get those meetings in the first place. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. And I found that so many women's organizations are focused, what I thought was, on the wrong problem, which is how to raise capital, how to prepare for pitch meetings, how to prepare the perfect deck. All of those things are incredibly important. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a rock solid business with rock solid revenue, you're just not going to succeed. So I thought it would be best to really focus on the root problem and help women achieve excellent traction and excellent metrics. So when they do get those meetings, they get a yes, and they have more than one option so that they have multiple term sheets that they can look at. And they're in a better position to negotiate. Because the other problem is that when women do get finally that $1 million check or $5 million check, they don't have a lot of leverage to negotiate because they don't have 5 or 6 people bidding to get their business. Mm-hmm. So they take what they can get, and those deals are usually pretty tough.
Interesting. So it sounds like We Global is busting down the barriers to entry to me.
Yes, very much so. I think that I view it as this. It's kind of like I've decided to dedicate myself to the minor leagues, to developing talent at that level. So then I can then offer up these incredible founders to the major leagues, and they have all of the not only the talent, but they have reach those metrics that are really critical, and they'll be sought after. So that's just something that's not done currently and is hugely missing.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the phrase serial entrepreneur a couple of times in your introduction, one in reference to yourself and the other in reference to what it takes to be a successful on the entrepreneur circuit, what it takes to be successful. I'm really curious about career paths, and so many people, when I talk to them, so many executives, when I talk to them about their career path, there's this narrative of, well, I was in the right place at the right time. There's this narrative of luck, and I like to challenge that a little bit, and I wonder if you can share with us the career path that you took to get you here, with a specific touch on how much of it was accidental and how much of your career path has been intentional.
I honestly can't really think of any career move that I've made or position that I've gotten that has been accidental. I've been, now maybe I'm being naive, but there certainly have been situations where you meet someone, that person connects you to someone else, who then connects you to someone else. And then, 6 months later, it turns into a job. So I suppose that could be a bit of synchronicity in that regard. But when I was working kind of in traditional corporate America, I was very intentional about my career moves, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really believed in career highs and lows. So when I started out, my strategy was I wanted to get into a great company that was a big company, a big brand. So I started my career at ABC. And I had, obviously, it was my first job. So my job was kind of junior level. I was a marketing analyst. When I left there, I wanted to go work for a smaller company, but have a much bigger area of responsibility. And so I parlayed the big brand to the smaller brand. Now Lifetime's a huge brand, but at the time it was just starting off. And I got incredible opportunity to run an entire division because it was starting out. And then I left that and I went to Paramount, and I just completed these highs and lows, and they literally really catapulted my career that way.
Yeah, I'm probably picking up, as I do, I'm picking up on some tiny bits of language, and just want to kind of just draw attention to the difference between I got an opportunity to I made the most of an opportunity. I don't know that you got the I like to think that the opportunity was there, and what you did with it was the thing that made the difference. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I do believe that's true. In fact, when I left Lifetime to go to Paramount in LA, I 3 months beforehand, I asked them to promote me to a vice president. And they were like, well, you've told us you're leaving. Why would we do that? And I said, because I deserve it.
Right
so
on.
They did.
Yeah.
So they did. They promoted me, and I left 4 weeks later.
Yeah, fascinating. The idea around asking for what you want and what stops us from asking what we want and what we think we deserve. And we so often just get so scared of being told no.
Right.
That stops us from even asking, right? So this entire series that we're filming today, Fernanda, is about the inherent qualities possessed by women that mean they are predisposed to leadership. What's your take on that?
Well, I think women are very much, they're really built for leadership, I believe. And the reason, I'm biased, clearly, and I'm a huge fan of women, clearly. I've dedicated my, this stage in my career, but certainly beforehand, to really supporting women. And I feel that women have both the intellect and they have the ability to juggle a lot of responsibilities and a lot of pressures and do it elegantly, because it's something that we have to do, given that many of us play multiple roles just as a woman. as a mother, as a partner, as a professional, as a caregiver for our parents. And although, men also share in those different roles, women are leaned on more heavily to deliver on those roles.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've seen during COVID, women continue to have to work from the home, but then they have to take a break and go cook lunch for the kids. Mm-hmm. So I think because of that, once they get into senior positions and they're CEO or they're on a board or whatever their responsibility is, they're able to juggle a lot of this because that's just the way we're built. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, I think that we are naturally nurturing and caring and empathic. Mm-hmm. And I think those are important qualities to have to build a fellowship, to really build a community of people around you in a corporation or in a business who really care about the work that they do and to really support their own personal development.
Yeah, beautiful. You mentioned the word that you used the word followership, which is a favorite word of mine, because that for me really talks directly to the heart of what the Queen archetype is about when it comes to leadership. The Queen understands that leadership is a behavior, not a title, that it's a verb, not a noun, and that the only real thing that defines whether or not you are a leader is the extent to which, when you look around, you have followers. And so I wonder how that description lands with you.
Well, it lands very well. I think that's actually probably one of my strongest suits, is to be able to bring people in and to share with them my vision or my excitement around a project or an initiative, and to create an environment whereby it really is my honest, heart-centered goal is to create an environment where it's a win-win for everyone. I'm really not interested in dictating work-related tasks or projects to people if it's really not the kind of work that feeds their own passions and their own goals. So part of my work is really understanding what people are interested in doing, the people around me, what they're interested in how they want to grow as professionals. Do they want to grow as writers? Do they want to grow publicly in doing presentations or being on stage? Do they want management responsibilities? Have they always been interested in strategy work but have never gotten it? So I look for those cues so that I can keep that in mind. And if there's an opportunity for that, then that's what I do, because I want to keep all of the individuals that I work with excited and fulfilled, because that's how you keep great people.
Mm. So, I mean, that's benevolence is a word that springs to mind when I hear you talk. And I just want to, push that a little bit, because there may be people out there who are like, well, yeah, that's all well and good, Fernanda. That approach is all well and good, but what about the insert, whatever words? And I just wanted that benevolent approach. Do you really believe that benevolence can lead to success from a commercial, fiscal, customer, business point of view?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think in this day and age, those days of older management styles just don't work, because they don't work with millennials. They don't work with younger people who are coming up who just call bullshit. They're like, I don't need this. And they move on. And that's really not what's behind my motivation. But I think that smart management knows that you really have to approach your business differently. You need to be honest. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be clear, and you need to provide reciprocal opportunity. The rest is just BS.
Yeah. Wow. And just in a very short sentence there, you've actually summarized the entire We Lead series and all of the other archetypes that we're going to be talking about. So that's thank you for that. And your episode 1 as well. So it's a beautiful kind of almost BBC like segue into the future episodes. Yeah, I one of the things that I really enjoy about what you just said, Fernanda, is how this this idea of working towards what the workforce needs, not trying to get the workforce to bend from their natural, it's almost like you're going to their bus stop and asking them to get on your bus rather than asking them to walk to your bus stop. Strange metaphor, but the idea that I see in so many leaders, the frustration around, well, if only today's workforce were a little bit more like the workforce was when I was coming up through the ranks, we'd all be okay. But that's not what you're saying here.
No, I wanted to also underscore that I really look at, when I'm working with people, I really look for what they're looking for in the future, not based on the work they've done in the past. So you can look at someone's resume and say, oh, they've spent 15 years doing marketing and they're amazing at marketing. And perhaps you have a marketing position that you're interviewing for, but you find out that their aspirations have really been in sales, let's say. So in that situation, you either make a decision as a business person, is there an opportunity to throw some additional responsibilities that might be more sales driven in with the marketing job? And if there's not, then that's going to be a short-term hire because at some point they're going to leave. So then you have to evaluate, is it worth my time investment and the time of people around me to train this person in the corporate culture and in our work, if they're probably just going to be leaving and they're not going to be happy and they're not going to do their best work.
Thank you. So just diving into your personal experiences a little bit more with specific thought around the Queen archetype, would you share a time, as an example from your career, where you've drawn upon the energy of the Queen archetype and it went well? It led to great results or whatever it is, but a time that it really went well for you.
Well, I think that the formation of We Global is 100% the Queen archetype. I have been able to bring into the organization so many extraordinary women and individuals who are really passionate about the same problem space that I'm passionate about. I mean, we all collectively have gotten together and have really pulled our resources and our energy and our time to really solve this problem of female leadership and this void. It's not necessarily about just helping women entrepreneurs. We want to help women entrepreneurs because we feel that there is a void of female leadership in this world in all regards, whether it is in politics, in business, in healthcare, in finance, in education, whatever it may be. There's just not enough women, not only at the table, there's not enough women at the head of the table. And we all believe that the fastest way to get more women at the head of the table is through the startup ecosystem, that doing it through the corporate culture is just going to take way too long. And given the status of our planet, we don't have that time. We don't have the luxury of like 30 years to get there. We need to get there now because decisions are being made that impact all of us. And I think part of it is the zeitgeist of what's going on and how fortunate I have been and how blessed I've been to be able to attract a lot of women to the We Global Party, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Including your
including me, yeah. And I just noticed the quickening of my heartbeat as you spoke about the mission that the company's on and what it is that we're here to do, and the shared desire and shared passion, which really does speak to that kind of that benevolence. I see a team that you have assembled who have all on the advisory board, each have got their own thing, right? Their own arrow to their bow, or whatever the metaphor is. But when I speak to every member of the advisory board, it's very, very clear that we're also here knitted together for the same reason, which I think is just, it feels incredible. Really does.
Yes. And also I wanted to add that my ultimate goal is to really create this very large tent where we can bring other women's organizations, not just individuals, but full organizations in with us to really talk about some shared global initiatives that we can work on together in order to accelerate this growth, as opposed to, organization A working on something and organization B working on something else. Whereas collectively, if we're all in the boat rowing in the same direction, we get there a lot quicker, to use a rowing metaphor from my old days as a coxswain.
So we've been talking about the idea around the kind of benevolence of the Queen, and how she uses her power to walk her talk, to demonstrate leadership, not through the fact of being called the Queen, but how she shows up in the world. On the flip side, how about a time when you perhaps forgot to access the energy of the Queen archetype, or I don't know, perhaps a time where you overdid it? I guess I'm really looking for a lesson learned in this space with a specific example that might interest the people tuning in.
Yeah, I think that actually there have been several times in my career where I have not been able to access the Queen archetype at all. I think, number one, if you work in a corporate environment, that's not always at your disposal. I mean, you get what you get, and you've got to make lemonade out of lemons. And if you're the only person who's able to do that, then you've got to do that. And I'm quite skilled at doing that. And part of my struggle has been to not burn out, because I am able to do a lot of different things, whether it's write or produce or manage or kind of do more kind of broad scope, strategic architecture type work, which is what I love. You have to say no. You have to say, I have to delegate. I have to draw on other people to really help me. And so that's something that I definitely struggled with in the corporate space, particularly when I was in the entertainment business as a development executive. And certainly when I was working early days in my tech company, where that was, I think, extremely challenging, because I am not a software engineer by background. And while I'm bright and I can certainly follow a lot at a very high level, I was really doing way too much on my own, way too much. So it got to be really exhausting, which is why when I started We Global, it was so noticeable to me how different it was. It almost felt like when I started my tech company, I was kind of swimming upstream, and it was always such effort. Whereas here, I feel like I'm literally just riding downstream and I'm getting a great ride, and it's all about just navigating the boat. So, so those are some different experiences I've had.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of push this a little bit further, Fernanda, what would you say were your learnings from those times that you mentioned?
Well, I mean, for example, when I started my tech company, I think that one of the things I should have done that I didn't do early days was bring in a tech co-founder. I should have brought in more. I actually did have other co-founders in the early days, and then we went our separate ways, and I stayed with the company, and I never replaced them, and I should have. So I think that would have made my experience a lot different. With We Global, I am still in the process of kind of populating the company, but we're already at well over 33 people who are associated with the company in a matter of less than 4 months. So it's just made it a much more glorious experience and a lot more fun, and working with incredible like-minded people on a very, very clear, heart-centered mission. I think that also makes it a lot easier.
I'm not sure if I'm hearing this right, or if this is what you are intending me to pick up, but what the message that's coming through for me is the idea around asking for help.
Yes. Yes. Asking for help. Yeah, I would say that's probably something that I've had to work on.
Yeah, I see this, the pressure on executives, full stop, but then female executives to have it all buttoned up and to have it all under control and to not ask for help because that might be seen in a male dominated world as a weakness, and being able to work through that in order to realize that asking for help is, it sounds trite, but is a strength rather than a chink in the armor.
Yes, I mean, I 100% agree with you. In defense of women out there who are listening to this, and I experienced this myself when I was working at Paramount, I was literally told when I asked for help that I wasn't going to get any. And you needed to think outside the box, right? And I went back to my office and I was like, okay, I'm going to think outside the box. And I know from personal experience and other women that it's not always well received. And there is a bit of sexism at play in the office, where some people can ask for help and that's okay. Other people ask for help too many times and it's the problem. So I guess the key is to really know your environment and where it's a safe place to ask for help, and how to effectively lean in and get help from either colleagues or outside people in order to, get over a certain bump in the road, so to speak, whether it's a political situation within a company or a product related problem or a project related issue.
Yeah, I think for me, that's another thing that the Queen typifies, is this idea around context is queen, right? Just knowing your environment and what exists in it, and knowing where you can do the things that you want to do, and knowing where it might not land you in the best light when you don't. Yeah.
Yes, that's street smarts.
Yes, indeed. Fernanda, this time just flies by so quickly. Our time is coming to a close, but before we do stop talking, I wonder if you have any last thoughts, pearls of wisdom that you would like to share with the folks listening or watching in at the moment.
Well, I guess one pearl of wisdom I will share that I've recently discovered, because I'm kind of a heads down person. And I've discovered through We Global a lot of really wonderful women's organizations. And I've joined a lot of them, more so than I ever have professionally in my career. And I did so because of exactly what I'm doing now and how important it is to connect other women and to really be out in the female ecosystem and really understand what the issues are. But I have found in doing so such an incredible sisterhood that I never discovered. And I think if I had to do it all over again, I should have done that many, many years ago and been more involved in a lot of different women's organizations. And I think it probably would have made my journey more fun and easier.
Yeah, build community.
Yes, building community. So please join ours, and we look forward to welcoming you.
Yeah. Well, Fernanda, I mean, you used the word or the phrase heart-centered during our conversation today, and I hope there are many more people that get to experience exactly what that means, because whenever I leave an interaction with you, my heart is always warmed. I always leave feeling better about myself than I did when I arrived, and that is just, it's a priceless commodity and quality that you possess that is just gorgeous. So thank you for the conversation. And so that's a wrap for one more episode. And please join me next time, where I'm going to be joined by the inimitable Tracy Christian, who's going to be talking with us about the seer archetype. So until then, Fernanda, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.